Have you ever felt strung along by someone's mixed signals, like you're chasing crumbs of affection? Or maybe you've been ghosted, only for them to reappear like some kind of emotional zombie. And let's not forget the pain of being someone's secret, hidden away from the world. These aren't just bad dating days, they're toxic trends, breadcrumbing, zombieing, and pocketing, and they're wreaking havoc on modern relationships. Today, we're breaking them down and talking about why they happen, how they hurt, and what you can do to protect your heart. Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to the Wisdom of Sex. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Wisdom, your guide to navigating the often messy world of love, intimacy, and relationships. Before we begin, I want to say thank you to all those who have subscribed and giving me 5 stars. It really helps others see my podcast. The more ratings, the more this show gets put out there. It's so weird how algorithms work. Okay, enough of that. Let's start this show. Breadcrumbing, zombieing, pocketing, and more. These toxic trends are more than just buzzwords. They're real behaviors causing heartbreak and confusion for countless people. So what are they? Why are they happening? And how can we protect ourselves? Well, let's start with a quick crash course on these terms. First up, breadcrumbing. Picture this. Someone you're interested in sends you just enough attention to keep you hooked, maybe a random thinking of you text or a flirty comment on your post, but they never actually make plans or follow through. That's breadcrumbing, and it's a frustrating, manipulative way of keeping someone on the back burner. Then we have zombieing. This one's a bit spookier. You're ghosted, completely left in the lurch. No explanation, no closure. And then out of nowhere, they're back. A random, "Hey stranger" text like nothing ever happened. Cue the whiplash. Finally, pocketing. This one's sneaky. Pocketing happens when someone deliberately keeps their relationship with you a secret. You're never introduced to their friends, their family, or their public life. It's as if they're tucking you away in their pocket for their private use, but never letting the world know you exist. So why are these toxic trends on the rise? Let's break it down. First, the world of dating apps has made people more disposable. With a swipe or a tap, there's always someone new to meet, and this abundance of choice often leads to shallow connections. Second, many people are struggling with emotional maturity. Let's face it, commitment can be scary, and being vulnerable takes work. For some, it's easier to breadcrumb or pocket someone than to be honest about their feelings. And third, there's the influence of social media. Platforms like Instagram and Snapchat make it so easy to dole out quick, superficial attention, like leaving a heart emoji on someone's story, without investing real effort. It's fast food dating, and it's leaving us emotionally malnourished. Now, let's talk about the fallout. These behaviors may seem trivial at first, but they can leave lasting scars. If you're the one being breadcrumbed, you're constantly second-guessing yourself. Am I not good enough? Did I do something wrong? It's exhausting and erodes your self-esteem over time. Zombieing might be even worse because it reopens wounds you thought had healed. When someone ghosts you and then resurfaces, it stirs up all that old hurt, and it can make closure feel impossible. And pocketing? That cuts deep. Feeling hidden or excluded from someone's life can make you feel unworthy, like you're not good enough to be seen or celebrated. It's isolating and painful. For those who engage in these behaviors, the damage might not be as obvious, but trust me, it's there. When you avoid real connection, you rob yourself of the chance to build meaningful, fulfilling relationships. You're stuck in a cycle of shallow, unfulfilling interactions, and that takes a toll. All right, let's shift gears. How do we break free from these toxic patterns, whether we're the ones doing them or the ones on the receiving end? First, let's talk to my breadcrumbers, zombies, and pocketers out there. You need to get honest with yourself. Why are you behaving this way? Are you afraid of being vulnerable? Are you unsure about what you want? If so, it's time to do some inner work. Therapy, journaling, or even just open conversations with trusted friends can help you unpack those fears. And if you're on the receiving end of these behaviors, I've got 3 words for you. Set clear boundaries. Don't accept less than you deserve. If someone is breadcrumbing you, call it out. If they're zombieing you, demand accountability before even considering letting them back into your life. And if you're being pocketed, ask yourself, do I want to be with someone who isn't proud to share their life with me? Lastly, remember this. Your worth isn't defined by someone else's behavior. You're not a backup plan, a secret, or a convenience. You deserve a partner who's all in. But if you thought breadcrumbing, zombieing, and pocketing were the only hurdles in modern dating, think again. The digital age has brought us a whole new vocabulary to describe the ways relationships can go off the rails. Let's explore some of these issues. You're probably familiar with ghosting. It's the silent killer of budding relationships. One day, everything seems fine, and the next, poof, they're gone. No explanation, no closure. Ghosting leaves you questioning what went wrong and often blaming yourself. But here's the truth. Ghosting says more about the ghoster's inability to communicate than it does about you. Next up, benching. Benching is one of those frustrating modern dating behaviors that leaves people feeling strung along and undervalued. Here's how it works. Someone gives you just enough attention to keep you interested, but never enough to truly move things forward. You might get a random text here and there, or maybe they make vague plans like, we should hang out sometime, but those plans never actually materialize. It's the ultimate game of almost, and it's exhausting for the person on the receiving end. So why does benching hurt so much? First, it erodes your sense of self-worth. When someone keeps you as a backup plan or just an option, it's easy to start wondering, what's wrong with me? Why am I not good enough to be their priority? That kind of self-doubt is emotionally draining. On top of that, benching creates false hope. You think, if I'm patient enough, or if I show them how great I am, they'll eventually commit. But more often than not, that commitment never comes. Instead, you're stuck in an endless cycle of waiting and wondering, which wastes valuable time and emotional energy you could be investing elsewhere. What's tricky about benching is that it isn't always malicious. Sometimes people, both men and women, bench others unintentionally. Women, for example, might bench someone because they enjoy the attention. Let's be honest, we all like to feel wanted. For some, it can feel comforting to know there's someone out there who's interested, even if they don't want to take things further. That validation, that little ego boost, can be addictive. It's not always a conscious decision to hurt someone. It might just be a way to keep their own self-esteem afloat during a time when they're not ready to commit. But even when it's unintentional, the impact on the benched person is still damaging. The bencher isn't immune to emotional consequences either. While they might think they're maintaining control or keeping their options open, they're often stuck in shallow, unfulfilling connections. Avoiding real commitment or tough conversations means they're robbing themselves of the chance to build something meaningful. And let's not ignore the guilt and anxiety that can come with this behavior. Stringing someone along is emotionally taxing, even if it feels easier in the short term than being honest. So how do you know if you're being benched? Pay attention to patterns. If communication is inconsistent, if plans are always vague or seem to fall through, and if the relationship feels stuck in neutral no matter how much time passes, you're probably on the bench. It's a painful realization, but recognizing the signs is the first step to protecting yourself. The good news is you can take action. Start by setting boundaries. Don't settle for half-hearted attention or empty promises. If you're feeling undervalued, have an honest conversation about where things stand. A direct question like, "What are you looking for here?" might feel intimidating, but it can save you weeks or even months of emotional limbo. And remember, your time and energy are precious. Don't waste them waiting for someone who isn't willing to prioritize you. Then there's love bombing. Now, I want to spend a minute on this one because I think a lot of people misunderstand it. It's easy to confuse love bombing with genuine excitement about a new relationship, especially when it involves grand gestures, constant attention, or showering someone with gifts and compliments. After all, isn't that what romance is supposed to feel like? The beginning of any relationship is often full of passion and enthusiasm. It's normal for someone to want to express how much they care. But here's the key difference. Love bombing isn't about authentic connection. It's about control. Love bombing feels magical at first. It's intoxicating to be the center of someone's world, to receive constant texts, hear endless words of affirmation, and experience over-the-top gestures. But it's often used as a tool to create emotional dependency. The bomber showers you with attention to draw you in, almost like bait. And here's the kicker. Once they feel they've got you hooked, the affection tends to dry up. That's when the confusion sets in. You start wondering, what did I do wrong? Why has their behavior changed? Was this my fault? It's disorienting, and it can leave you doubting your worth and questioning your instincts. So, how do you tell the difference between genuine excitement and love bombing? The answer lies in the pace and intention. Healthy relationships grow steadily. They take time to build trust, mutual respect, and understanding. Love bombing, on the other hand, feels overwhelming and often too good to be true. It's like going from 0 to 60 in the span of a week. Someone who genuinely cares about you will allow the relationship to develop naturally. They won't feel the need to prove their affection with constant contact or extravagant displays. Another red flag is how the person reacts when you try to slow things down or set boundaries. In a healthy relationship, your partner will respect your need for space or time. But a love bomber often gets upset or defensive when you try to pump the brakes. That's because their behavior isn't about you. It's about their need to control the relationship. It's important to trust your gut. If someone's attention feels overwhelming, like they're trying to sweep you off your feet so fast that you barely have time to think, take a step back. Genuine love doesn't need to overwhelm or consume you. It supports you, builds you up, and allows you to grow at your own pace. Remember, the strongest relationships don't explode overnight. They're built brick by brick with care and intention. Next up, situationship. I won't spend too much time on this. I think we all understand it. And who hasn't found themselves in a situationship? That gray area where you're more than friends, but less than a committed couple. While this setup might work for some, it often leaves one person wanting more and the other unwilling to define the relationship. If this is you, it's time to ask yourself, are you truly happy, or are you settling for ambiguity? I always thought this more of a friends with benefits type of situation that turns into one side wanting more. It happens all the time. It can be difficult to just have a fling without emotions being involved. Some think they can, only to find out in the end they caught feelings. So be careful of this one. Ever had an ex pop back into your life out of the blue? That's paperclipping, and it's as frustrating as it sounds. Imagine you've moved on, maybe even started to heal from the relationship, and then suddenly, there they are, sending a casual, "Hey, how have you been?" or liking an old post on social media. It's not about reconciliation, and it's definitely not about building something meaningful. Instead, paperclipping is a way for someone to stir up emotions, test the waters, or see if you're still attached to them. It's less about you and more about their need for validation. Here's why it's so damaging. Paperclipping reopens emotional wounds. Even if you've made peace with the end of the relationship, their sudden reappearance can bring back unresolved feelings or memories you thought you had put to rest. It creates confusion. Why are they reaching out? Do they want to get back together? Should I respond? And in many cases, their motives aren't clear until it's too late. Once they get the reaction they're looking for, they tend to vanish just as quickly as they appeared, leaving you feeling used and emotionally unsettled. What makes paperclipping even trickier is that it often feels innocent at first. Maybe they're nostalgic, or maybe they genuinely miss you, right? Wrong. The reality is, if someone's reaching out without clear intentions to reconnect in a meaningful way, it's more likely about them needing an ego boost. They're not ready to let go entirely, but they're also not prepared to give you what you deserve. So when you spot this behavior, protect your peace. You're not a bookmark for someone's convenience, and your emotional well-being isn't something to be toyed with. It's okay to set boundaries. If responding to their message feels like opening a door you've already closed, don't respond. Remember, moving forward means not letting the past drag you back into emotional limbo. You deserve relationships that prioritize clarity, respect, and care, not confusion and half-hearted attempts at attention. Cushioning is another sneaky one. This happens when someone flirts with others while in a relationship, just in case things don't work out. It's not quite benching, because cushioning happens when you're actually in the relationship, whereas benching you're not committed. Some might not think this is cheating, but can be a betrayal of trust. Relationships thrive on emotional safety, and cushioning completely undermines that. But here's the deal about why this might or might not be cheating. It is so important for couples to discuss what cheating means to them. As I said, cushioning may be cheating for some, while others could care less. While we talked about pocketing earlier, its cousin stashing is worth mentioning. Stashing specifically refers to hiding a partner from social media and public acknowledgement. It's one thing to be private, but if someone is deliberately avoiding sharing your existence, you've got to ask, what are they hiding and why? Let's talk about fizzling, another frustratingly common way relationships end in today's dating world. Fizzling isn't as abrupt or shocking as ghosting. Instead, it's a slow fade, where the other person gradually reduces their effort and engagement until the connection quietly fizzles out. Maybe their texts become shorter and less frequent, or they stop initiating conversations altogether. Plans that were once exciting and certain start falling through, and any spark of interest they once showed begins to disappear. Here's the thing about fizzling. It's an avoidance tactic. Instead of having an honest conversation to end things, the person fizzling out chooses to quietly slip away, hoping you'll just get the hint. It might seem less confrontational or easier for them, but for the person being fizzled, it's confusing and painful. You're left questioning what went wrong and whether you're imagining the shift in their behavior. Without closure, it's hard to move on. What makes fizzling so hurtful is that it's ambiguous. You're stuck in limbo wondering, are they busy? Are they losing interest? Should I reach out, or am I bothering them? The lack of clarity can keep you emotionally invested long after the relationship is effectively over. And that's the cruel irony. Fizzling might feel like the gentler option for the person doing it, but it drags out the hurt for the person on the receiving end. If you notice someone fizzling, it's important to recognize the signs early and protect your own emotional well-being. Don't chase after clarity they're unwilling to provide. Instead, take control of the situation. You can send a direct message like, "Hey, I've noticed some distance lately. Are we still on the same page about where this is going?" If they can't give you a clear answer or make an effort to change, it might be time to walk away on your terms. Then we have orbiting, one of the most maddening behaviors in modern dating. Imagine this: someone ghosts you, completely vanishes without a word. You're left hurt, confused, and trying to move on. But instead of staying gone, they linger around the edges of your life, engaging with your social media. They like your posts, watch your stories, maybe even comment on the occasional photo, but they never actually reach out. It's like they're haunting you without actually being present. Orbiting is confusing because it sends mixed signals. You start wondering, why are they still watching me? Are they interested again? Do they regret leaving? But here's the hard truth. Orbiting is rarely about rekindling anything meaningful. Instead, it's a passive way for someone to keep themselves in your thoughts without putting in the effort to actually reconnect. It's like they want the benefits of being remembered without the responsibility of being involved. This behavior is often rooted in ego or insecurity. Watching your life from afar might satisfy their curiosity or give them a sense of control, knowing they can pop up in subtle ways without committing to a real interaction. But for you, the person being orbited, it's frustrating, unsettling, and sometimes painful. It keeps emotional wounds open, making it harder to fully move on. If you find yourself being orbited, the best thing you can do is disengage. Their actions don't deserve your attention or energy. You don't owe them an explanation, a reaction, or a place in your life. If it helps, block them or set your profile to private, whatever boundaries you need to reclaim your peace. Remember, someone who cared enough to be in your life wouldn't just linger on the sidelines. They'd show up fully. Don't settle for the ghost of their presence when you deserve so much more. Let's not forget dating burnout. Swiping, matching, chatting, and starting over again. It's exhausting. If you're feeling drained, it's okay to take a break. Sometimes stepping away is the healthiest thing you can do for your emotional well-being. Speaking of swiping addiction is real. It's the compulsion to keep looking for the next best thing, even when you've found a great connection. This can turn dating into a game of what if, rather than fostering meaningful relationships. It's like gambling. It's a dopamine hit. It's like getting high. A better match is next, I just know it. And then there's cloaking, being stood up for a date while simultaneously being blocked on all platforms. It's the ultimate disappearing act, and while it's painful in the moment, remember, someone who cloaks you isn't worth your time. Finally, we've got DTR anxiety, fear of having the define the relationship talk. While it's natural to feel nervous, avoiding the conversation only prolongs mismatched expectations and heartache. These modern dating trends might feel overwhelming, but here's the good news. Awareness is your superpower. If you noticed, all of these toxic behaviors have a common theme. They all make you question things, or even worse, yourself. Is something wrong with me? With this relationship? Am I not good enough? What's wrong with me? Why not me? Why can't they just be honest? Commit? Give me answers? Understand where I'm going with this. If you're questioning yourself or your relationship, it's time for a real, honest, in-person conversation. Don't sit in silent rumination about what's wrong with you. The bottom line, if any of these behaviors, breadcrumbing, ghosting, zombieing, benching, orbiting, or anything else, are happening to you, don't justify it. Be honest with yourself. They're just not that into you, and that's okay. But what's not okay is settling for someone who isn't making you a priority. The truth is, if someone is really into you, they'll show it. They'll find time to be with you, talk to you, text you, and make an effort. Stop making excuses like, well, they worked late, or they're just busy. Both might be true on occasion, but even the busiest people make time for the things and the people that matter. Take a moment to reflect. Are you bending over backward to make time for them while they barely reciprocate? That's a red flag. Take a hard look at your own effort. You're finding time to connect, to reach out, to make them feel cared for. And if they truly wanted you, they'd do the same. The excuses might be true in the moment, but if it's a constant theme, it's not about their schedule. It's about their lack of investment. Stop accepting breadcrumbs when you deserve the whole loaf. Stop allowing someone to orbit your life without being fully present. And stop giving your time and energy to people who don't reciprocate. The right person won't leave you guessing. They'll show up, they'll make an effort, and they'll leave no doubt about how much they value you. You deserve nothing less. But let's flip the script for a moment. If you're the one doing these behaviors, breadcrumbing, orbiting, benching, take a hard look at yourself. Why are you keeping someone on the hook if you're not really interested? Is it because it feels good to have someone's attention? Are you afraid of confrontation or hurting their feelings? Or maybe you're just unsure of what you want? Whatever the reason, it's important to stop stringing someone along. That person is investing time and energy in you, likely hoping for something real, while you're holding them in emotional limbo. It's not fair to them, and it's not fair to you either. If you're not into someone, the kindest thing you can do is be honest. Let them go so they can find someone who truly values them, and so you can focus on building genuine connections too. Stringing people along might feel easier in the moment, but it only creates more pain in the long run, for both of you. Relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or otherwise, should be built on mutual effort and respect. If you're not getting it, or if you're not giving it, it's time to take a step back and reevaluate. Life's too short for one-sided connections. Choose better for yourself and for them. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for tuning in to The Wisdom of Sex. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. You can also send your questions to me at drheatherwisdom.com or social media, and who knows, your story might be featured in a future episode. And don't forget, my new book is out and available on Amazon. The Wisdom of Sex for the Neurodivergent and Disabled. You can also find the links on my website. Until next time, be open, be curious, know your limits, and stay wise.